So the WSL Bells Beach Longboard Classic has just come to a close. So for this week on the Sunday Glide, we're going to do a full run through looking at the heats, the experiences and what we've taken away from the contest. And then saving the best till last, I'm actually going to do a full breakdown of the equipment, my Bells Quiver, and show you exactly what I'm riding, what I love about it. I'm absolutely stoked on the equipment at the moment, as well as giving you guys a full look at this with the breakdown of some of the behind the scenes footage in the training surfs in the lead up to the event. We had some epic waves, some great longboard waves, so let's get right into it. And if you are new here, my name's Considine and I'm a longboard enthusiast, a competitor on the 2023 World Longboard Tour and a coach. And I'm here to share my learnings and experiences like these ones today with you all. So if you do find the video useful and you find it helpful, then feel free to subscribe. And if you know of anyone else who might find it helpful as well, feel free to share it with them. But let's get straight into the video. So first things first, obviously just what a great contest and incredible waves, especially in the lead up to the event. Such good surfers and such good surfing put on display. Bells can be a little bit of a tricky wave, but it was really good to see how everyone was dialing into it. It has a few sections that kind of go from very, very steep to very shouldery and fat, but everyone was navigating it super well, especially in the bigger conditions. In terms of the heats, so I pulled my first heat with Cole Robbins and Ben Skinner, and it was a tricky-ish heat. You know, it was kind of slow, and it was something that I learned from this first heat and that I look to move forwards with this event with, but also in the next event, El Salvador, which I'll leave for in a week or so. It's all about wave selection. If we're on the right waves and you get the more opportunity, all of the surfers have the ability to post really, really high scores, and so it's about giving yourself the opportunity to make the most of those. I felt like I had some good waves, and I was actually really happy with the surfing that I put on display. In that first heat, Ben got a really, really nice long one and a bigger one, and he surfed it extremely well. In the challenging conditions where it was a little bit bumpier as well, he pulled through some really, really nice nose rides, turns, and just, yeah, surfed phenomenally. Same for Cole Robbins there, who came second in that heat. So yeah, my takeaways from that one were all about the wave selection and making sure that I'm actually able to get the waves that provide the most opportunity. Happy with where my surfing was, but probably didn't get to link things up the way that I needed to. In the second heat, I pulled Richie Cravey. So he was someone, exceptional surfer from California, and I think he made it to the quarterfinals in Huntington. The conditions for this heat, it was perfect all morning, and the waves got a little bit tricky. It got onshore and the tide was starting to get a little bit lower as well, which means at Rincon or at Bells, Rincon works on the high, and then as it gets a little bit lower, it starts to move through to the bowl. I like Rincon as the more predominant logging wave because it has a longer wall and it's a little bit more predictable. I had one wave that I was pretty happy with. It was a battle to get anything that really, really connected. Richie did great to find some waves that actually let him go all the way through to the inside and held up for him, and he surfed them really, really well, connecting his maneuvers. Again, I had one wave that I was pretty happy with, and I had another wave that I thought might have been a little bit underscored, but I think the judges did an amazing job. Something I did notice about the heat was the fact that it was just so non-stop. There were tons of waves coming through. I was trying to be selective, as one of the kind of key takeaways from that first heat of the event in round one was the wave selection and being on the best wave. There was so many waves coming that I constantly just found myself out the back. As soon as I got out there, there would be a set of waves coming through, and trying to make my selection from those waves. I think going forwards, having patience and more patience, being really, really disciplined and strict about waiting, observing the waves and making sure that I'm not just going on one of the set waves, but it needs to be the wave, because out in conditions like that in particular, where the waves are so variable and shutting down and tricky to surf, if you can get one of those waves that does link through or that does have that open face to really, really work with, that's going to be a massive advantage in allowing you to get the score and progressing through to the next round, which again, hindsight is always 20/20. So it's something that I'm realizing now, but hopefully I can take forward into the next event in El Salvador. The rest of the event was epic. For finals, we had some really good surfing and some really good waves as well. It got a little slow towards the last heats of the day on the finals day on the Saturday, but some really good surfing put on display nonetheless. Massive congratulations to Soleil Erico and Kai Salas for taking out the event. Put on phenomenal surfing all event. I was definitely watching all the finals day, and yeah, it's just incredible the way that everyone was able to link their maneuvers together, just for everyone's interest as well. I think one of the key strong suits for the people doing really well on the tour at the moment is carrying speed and flow throughout their surfing and really making that a major priority for themselves as well, where we start to just look at maneuvers. Everyone can do these maneuvers, and so it's how we're actually linking these things and incorporating that in a traditional way, in a very smooth and elegant way on the wave, that I think really sets the top tier surfers from the rest. So it's really cool to see. I think that the judging was fantastic. I think that everyone was surfing really well and hitting the criteria phenomenally as well. So that was great. And so in terms of what's coming up for me now, I've got El Salvador coming up, and I'm actually leaving for that in about a week's time. It's going to be epic. I think that it is quite similar to Bells as well from what I can see. We're surfing the break El Sanzal, which looks like it's a nice right-hand point break. Can get a fair bit of swell as well, but main difference is the weather. It's pretty hot over there, so we're going to be substituting the wetties for the board shorts, I think, which is going to be good. So I'll keep you up to date with what's happening around El Salvador and when the contest starts there. It should be running from the 19th to the 25th. I think what we'll do now, let's step into a little bit of an assessment of the quiver that I'm using for Bells at the moment and some of the boards that I'll be taking to El Salvador as well. Again, I'm in love with all of this at the moment. It feels really good. This quiver has really allowed my surfing to step up to the next level, so love to share that with you. So let's get into it now. All right, so one of the boards that I definitely wanted to start with today was, it's a board called the Signature Model. I got this just before the event, and it goes really well. Just to give you a little bit of the understanding of what I'm using this board for. So it's definitely for conditions when it gets a little bit bigger at Bells. It's a bit of a speed shape, and so when Bells gets bigger, there's really a good advantage if you can hold your line and do long drawn out turns. Enable yourself to push with a lot of drive through the legs into the rail, and to have the board be able to hold that line and not skip out, as a lot of boards can do, especially longboards if we push too hard. So I found that this works really well with that regard. I challenged myself in some bigger conditions on this board, and it holds in really nicely, and you can just tell the dynamic nature of it and how fast and reliable it is through holding its turns in bigger conditions. So this is something that I'll definitely take to El Salvador as well. The key feature that I'd probably like to highlight is this pintail at the back here. So the pintail, just again, as we spoke about previously in the last video, really helps to engage a longer line of the board, and so there's more rail engagement rather than having something like a square tail, especially square tails which are quite large. Much easier to skip out, and because we don't have that extended line of the rail, it's easy for the board to skip out and be less controlled through your turns. But as you can see with this here, it's a nice pin, and I just love how it engages the turns really nicely. And you can seriously push as hard as you want. The harder you push, the faster it goes, which is really epic. There is still a little bit of kick through the tail here, so I like to maintain that kick because it does help to hold in for the nose rides. Again, if we're thinking about that seesaw effect we have with our longboards, with the kick at the tail, it's going to allow the water to push down better onto the tail of the board, creating that lift at the opposite end so that the board can seesaw, lift up at the nose so that you can walk up to the front, hold your nose rides, and create a lot of that levitation, which is really good. Obviously something like this, it's a little bit trickier to nose ride than your standard nose riders, but there's always a little bit of trade with the boards that we're surfing, and especially in big Bells conditions as well. You're probably not trying to optimize, or I'm certainly not trying to optimize for really long hang tens in sections that don't require it as well. I think we've got to make sure that we're surfing the whole wave, and that we're nose riding where it wants us to nose ride, and then that we're actually engaging some critical, fast, powerful driven turns, which this board definitely allows. So with this one as well, it also has a really nice teardrop concave that you might be able to see here. So starts around this end and comes all the way through to the nose there. It just helps to hold that water and slow yourself down as you're heading to the nose. I found that works really well. A bit of a kick through that nose as well, again, just for that safety aspect when we're walking and to the nose and nose riding, that we're not going to nosedive too easily. And then we can see some nice, really nice rolled rails as well, not too sharp. Yeah, this is one of the favorites in my Quiver at the moment. I was riding it a fair bit in the lead up to Bell's contest because the waves were a bit bigger. So that one's the signature model. Just to give you the dims on this one as well. It's a 9.3 by 22 7/8 by 3. So yeah, have a blast on this one. And yeah, there's going to be a lot more to see for this. It rolls from rail to rail really, really well. Feels really loose and lively, holds nicely on the nose as well. So yeah, this is definitely something that I'm going to take to El Sunzal in El Salvador because the waves are quite similar. If it gets bigger, then I can expect to be riding something like this. The other backup board that I had for the event, which I'm loving at the moment, is this Slasher Pro. So this board here, it's I've got a few of these. You might have seen my grey Slasher Pro as well. That grey one's just a 9.9, a little bit bigger. This one here is a 9.5, I believe, a little bit lighter as well. But I just find as a balance between having some exceptional nose riding capabilities and then being able to put it on rail nicely as well, this one is really good. I didn't end up riding this for the contest just because I rode my other Slasher Pro, which I go through for the moment, but this one was the backup. I find that this one here, it's got a nice smaller square tail with a fair bit of kick through that tail. That kick through the tail does slow the board down a little bit, which I actually find if there was maybe an in-between day where it was maybe 4 or 5 foot, this one could be a really, really good option to go for, because I think with that extra rocker through it, extra kick through the tail, it just has that extra safety element when we are turning. And we're not necessarily needing to, I suppose, push our speed too much on the wave, in a wave of that size, so 4 or 5 foot, because it's going to give us lots of energy and power anyway. So yeah, this is the type of board that I'd be riding in those conditions. Again, didn't end up riding this one in the event, surfed it heaps in the lead up to the event, and just love the way that this board is able to hold itself into the pocket nice and high for the nose rides. Really difficult to nosedive on. The nose here, nice and narrow through the nose. I find that that helps to lock it into the pocket really nicely. You can fit yourself into some super tight sections. And with this one here, just running a nice 10-inch Greeno style fin there as well. And this was the backup. But let's move into the actual board that I surfed in the contest. All right, and so this one here is the Magic Whip. This is another Slasher Pro. There's a few differences in how this one is shaped just from the other Slasher Pros that I have. But this one here is just such a good design. We can see, firstly, starting with the rail, it's a nice knifey rail here. I just find that this slices through the water so cleanly. It's exceptional in the way that it can hold the rail as well. Potentially, if we're getting into some bigger stuff, that's where I would definitely go through with the Signature, just because of the pintail and its ability to hold flying a little bit better as well. But this one, I really haven't had any troubles with skipping out or anything like that unless it gets quite big. In terms of the dimensions of this one here, what have we got? We've got a 9.8 by 23 by 3, running an 11-inch fin in this one. So just that Greeno style fin there, which I found was really good out at Bell's, just because there is a bit more energy, a bit more power. So able to just make sure that we are locking in and staying nice and locked in with the fin so that that doesn't jump out. And then this one here, a little bit heavier again. It's about 7.8 kilos. Don't know what that is in pounds, my apologies. But then we can see here as well, nice teardrop concave that comes through the front, again, starting around here and then moving all the way through to the nose there, again, just to hold yourself in the pocket. The main difference with this one here is the tail is a little bit wider than that previous one. And yeah, still like all the other Slasher Pros, has this really, really nice belly to it. So wide point back, that's something I should have said for the previous one as well. Definitely wide point back to allow us to have that hip to have a lot of fun with whipping the board around and allowing it to really, really carve rather than just pivoting off the tail like we've spoken about before on the channel. And then, yeah, so we can see there's a really, really nice rolled belly at the back here. Yeah, just allows us to execute our rail-to-rail surfing, which is in the criteria to a T. So much fun on this one. So yeah, this is my equipment at the moment. I'll probably be taking these 3 boards to El Salvador as well, following similar lines as what we spoke about for bells because it is such a similar wave. So I hope you've liked the little insight into the boards there. I know that I learned a lot from the recent bells contest, so it'll be cool to see where things go from here. Next stop is El Salvador. So thanks so much for watching there today, guys. I hope that was interesting to see, I guess, how the contest ran and some of the equipment that I'm riding as well. Again, I think things are in a really good place for me right now and really excited to take it on in El Salvador and see how things go there. We've got a really good glide coming up next week, so make sure you stay in tune for next Sunday. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one.